Welcome to Fact Recap. Today, we'll be recapping the story of a man cursed with everlasting life, who meets a detective solving crimes in New York City. It all starts when Henry enters a subway and sits next to a beautiful woman who he guesses is a Russian cello player with a show later that day. Little does he know that a train crash will render everyone dead, including Henry. However, he is given a power to come back to life every time he is killed, thanks to a power he received 200 years ago. Henry was a doctor checking a slave for suspected diseases on a ship. Even though Henry stated that the man only had a fever, the captain still orders the slave to be thrown overboard. While defending the slave from this injustice, Henry is killed and thrown overboard as well. However, Henry is reborn every time in a body of water completely naked. Each lifetime he remembers everything and feels every emotion in present time. Henry wakes up in the river, finds clothes at the police station, and gets picked up by Abe, his friend and roommate. Abe is the only one who knows about Henry's condition. At the same time, Detective Joe Martinez investigates the train crash. It is suspected that the conductor had a heart attack leading to the crash. However, to ensure that this happened, the body needs to be examined by a medical examiner. Henry works as a New York medical examiner, and while he studies the conductor's body, he meets Joe. He gives his condolences for her husband's death, and Joe is shocked at his guess. However, before she can inquire more, Henry lets her know the conductor was poisoned. Suddenly, Henry gets a call from someone unknown who tells him he knows his secret and he's been looking for him for a long time. Henry is terrified at someone knowing his secret. Returning home, he tells Abe that they need to flee the country. Abe refuses to do so and tells Henry they should just catch the man. Henry had been experimented on due to his condition, so he doesn't trust people with his secret. Later, Henry returns to his office and his co-worker Lucas tells him that someone left an envelope for him. Opening the envelope, he finds a picture of himself and his former wife Abigail taken in March 1955. Henry, to figure out the effect of the poison used, takes a sample of the conductor's blood. Abe injects him with the blood and Henry experiences terrible symptoms before dying. However, after returning from death, he figures out the poison was aconidia, fast-reacting poison. Back at the precinct, Joe looks at footage from before the crash and sees that Henry was on the train. She brings him in for questioning and he tells her he left the train before anything happened. When Joe suspects him, Henry asks why he would mention the poison used if he had committed the crime. Joe agrees with his logic, but is still suspicious of him. Henry investigates the body of the conductor and learns that he was poisoned behind his ear. He finds a fingerprint on the neck that he later gives to Joe with some research. Joe learns that the culprit is a man called Hans, whose wife died while trying to get on a subway. The conductor had been the same one driving the train. Henry and Joe go to find Hans and find the stash of poison. They try to apprehend the criminal, but he throws poison at Joe before escaping. The team continues to search the house, finding a blueprint for the metro station. The killer plans on using the poison as an airborne attack at the train station. Visiting the station, Henry and Joe go to the roof looking for Hans. Unfortunately, Joe is shot from the back by him. Henry tries convincing him that it's not worth it, but when that fails, he tries to get the gun. However, this results in Henry getting shot. Henry falls to the ground, and as Hans turns away to get the poison, Henry uses his last remaining strength to push him off the roof. The two fall from the building and die. A while later, Joe wakes up next to Henry. She is confused as she thought they both jumped, but Henry jokes that it's just the morphine talking. Henry suddenly gets a call from the mysterious man, who reveals he is just like him. A flashback to World War II reveals that Henry was a soldier and met Abigail, who found an abandoned baby. It is revealed that Abe is Henry's adopted son, who he took care of all these years. Later, a distressed woman named Vicky asks her cab driver to hurry up and tries to call someone. She suddenly asks the cab driver to stop in the middle of the bridge and jumps off, killing. Joe recruits Henry for the examination of the bodies alongside her partner, Detective Mike. The guy the detectives thought was murdered was actually just in an unfortunate accident. However, in the case of Vicky, Henry tells them she was murdered that night. Henry bikes to the bridge and finds 2 fingerprints to confirm where Vicky jumped. When he tries to jump back to the road, he's hit by a truck and dies as the truck driver leaves his truck. Henry is nowhere to be found. Lucas tells him that he found skin under Vicky's nails, confirming the theory that she was killed. Henry finds a box on his desk with a note written about his recent death. Henry and Joe visit Vicky's campus where she worked as a teacher's assistant to learn more about her. While speaking to James, she reveals that he was working on a paper with Vicky but had no friendship with her otherwise. James tells the two that he was at the opera with his wife, which Joe finds suspicious as she didn't ask for an alibi. Henry is ahead of her and takes DNA evidence on a pen. They run a DNA test and find that the skin and the pen have the same DNA. James is brought to interrogation and he confesses that while he had an affair with her, he broke up with her, not wanting to waste her time. Henry seems to believe him, thinking that the DNA collected could be from sexual activities. Later, Henry receives the news that the professor has committed suicide. After examining the body, he learns that the professor was killed by a left-handed person. Henry realizes that Paul killed the two due to not getting credit for the paper. Henry knows that Paul lured Vicky to the bridge, claiming he was going to commit suicide. When she appeared to stop him, he killed her and killed the professor to prevent being found out. With his plan known, Paul grabs Henry hostage with a knife and tries to escape. However, Joe and Mike see them on the security footage, and Joe manages to kill Paul. Later that night, Henry gets a call from the mysterious caller who says that Henry is a child. While the man has been alive for 2,000 years, the caller reveals his name as Adam. The next day, a teenage kid steals a briefcase from an old man named Bill. Despite his age, Bill is able to chase down the kid and beats him up. However, during the fight, the man starts coughing up blood and dies on the spot. The next morning, Henry and Lucas examine the body to discover that Bill was strong for a 67-year-old man. Upon further investigation, they find that the man had the body of a 30-year-old, but the brain of a 100-year-old, as his brain had been highly damaged. They find his briefcase to discover a business card that says Youth Vitality Vigor alongside some dollar visiting the crime scene. They see a woman who doesn't look like she's from the neighborhood and follow her into an alley. They enter a medical wellness center and see a man on the TV, Dr. Frederick, promising youth to people. As they speak to him, they learn that he sells a special shake called the Turna, which is approved by the FDA. The shake is meant to make people younger and stronger, and it does not have any side effects. Henry speaks to the woman they followed and manages to grab a packet of the shake mix after she tells him it's a miracle shake. Joe is able to take the fingerprint of Frederick. Joe learns that Dr. Frederick is not actually a doctor and is a person named Harold. Harold had a wellness center but closed it when 2 people died. They visit Harold's house while he is having a party and confront him about his previous endeavors. Harold agrees to talk and goes back into his room to change clothes. Suddenly, they hear a loud sound and rushing into his room, they find him dead. Back at the lab, Henry figures out that the shake has prions from dead people's brains, which the makers are using to replace the real ingredients, which are expensive. Henry learns that Lucas has lost 2 bodies from their workplace and a total of 12 bodies are missing from the city. The bodies are traced back to Anton, who confesses to making a Turner and killing Harold. However, Henry doesn't believe him as he doesn't have enough knowledge of science. Henry sees Abe's name of the list of clients and rushes back home to see if he took it. However, Abe reassures him he didn't take it. Even after meeting the female chemist going back to the precinct, Abe describes the woman to the cops. She is revealed to be the sister of Anton. Abe sees the woman entering the subway and follows her while telling Henry where she is. Henry and Joe arrive at the station and Henry confronts. The woman tearfully confesses that she didn't know the drug was hurting people, and she was going to destroy it. She tries to jump on the rail as a train approaches, but Henry jumps in to save her. A few days later, a wealthy New Yorker, Gloria, has a ceremony in a museum. Gloria is 91 years old and mean to everyone during the party. Gloria goes into a dark hallway with a mysterious figure following her. Her son Conrad gives a speech about her, but just a few moments later she is found dead. The next morning, Lucas arrives at the crime scene, and when Joe questions why Henry wasn't there, he makes up an excuse for him. Joe arrives at the lab, and after she questions why he didn't come, he tells her he doesn't like to go to the museum. Meanwhile, Lucas meets a pretty reporter, and because he doesn't know she's a reporter, he tells her it may have been a murder. The reporter publishes the news the next day, and Conrad tells the lieutenant that the mayor is upset that this autopsy wasn't kept a secret. Lucas feels bad for telling the reporter, but Henry takes the blame for the incident. Henry apologizes to Conrad, but Conrad asks for Henry to be removed from the case. Joe still takes Henry to the crime scene. After analyzing the room, he concludes Gloria was pushed off the stairs and crawled across the floor. The security cameras reveal Gloria's granddaughter's fear-defined Lance. Following Gloria into the dark hallway as they bring him in for questioning, he says he only went to her to ask for her granddaughter's hand. When asked if Gloria had acted weird, he reveals that she mentioned a burning smell, which Henry recognizes as a drug reaction. Returning to the office, he learns that her body has been sent to the morgue. Henry notices Conrad's hands shaking, which he recognizes to be epilepsy medicine, the exact medicine that killed Gloria. They question Conrad but find that he is not guilty. Lucas reveals that he did an autopsy on Gloria's body, which confirms Henry's theory. They bring in her nurse for questioning. As they find out, the will is going to her, but also find no reason to blame her for the death. A flashback reveals that Henry and Abigail snuck into Gloria's party, and Gloria asked why he hasn't married Abigail yet. She says he shouldn't make the same mistake as she did with her lover. Visiting Gloria's estate, they find the epilepsy pills in her car. Henry realizes Gloria killed herself. Henry tells Conrad and the rest of the group that Gloria knew she only had a little time and wanted to kill herself. He shows them a painting in the museum from an unknown Argentinian painter, and reveals that Gloria loved him, but since her husband threatened her, she gave in. However, in her last moments, she wanted to die in front of the painting. Lance interrupted her, but by that time, the medicine started to work, and she fell down the stairs. She crawled to the painting before her last breath. Henry has a flashback to when he proposed to Abigail using Gloria's advice. A boxer named Raul trains a boy named Alejandro who is 12 years old. 3 days later, Raul is found in an apartment dead with a heroin needle stuck in his arm as Joe and Henry investigate. Henry learns Raul was murdered. He does an autopsy, the batch of heroin but hear rats. Henry tells Lucas to collect the rats as they may still have heroin in their system from eating Raul's dead body. Henry learns through a dealer that Raul has been clean for years. Henry buys some heroin but is caught by the cops. However, back at the precinct, Henry explains she bought the heroin for research purposes. Henry visits the rec center with Joe, where Raul used to train other kids. They meet Fabian, who tells them a real estate developer named Tommy was trying to buy the buildings in the neighborhood and rebuild luxury real estate. Raul was against this and tried to stop Tommy visiting the neighborhood. They visit a construction site owned by Tommy. Henry finds the same material on the floor that he found on Raul's shoes and believes this is the murder site. He asks Joe to call Raul's phone, which is found buried in the ground. After recovering the phone, they call the last number called and Tommy's phone rings. Tommy is taken for questioning, but they can't find anything on him. Joe finds another suspect named Lou. They follow Lou in the night and see him receiving a package from Tommy, which he delivers to the rec center. Breaking into the rec center, they find $50,000 in Fabian's locker. Fabian is called for questioning, but reveals that he got the money to convince the neighborhood to sell. Believing Fabian, they send him with a wire to confront Tommy. However, Tommy only confesses about the bribery. Henry sees Alejandro and tries to talk to him. However, after seeing someone at the bodega, Alejandro runs away. Henry realizes that the kid knows the killer. Before they can find the kid, they find his bike nearby and know he's been kidnapped. Henry realizes that the bodega owner was the one the kid was looking at, and they break into the store. They find a basement linked to the shop, and they find the owner ready to kill Alejandro. Stopping him, the owner shoots at Joe and Henry and runs away. Joe comforts the child, while Henry chases the man. As they head outside, the owner is suddenly run over by a truck. The owner dies without confessing anything. Tommy is not caught for the death of Raul, but he is caught for his bribery. Fabian tells the community, and unanimously the community refuses to sell. Later at night, Henry invites Joe to dinner and she asks where Henry and Abe met. They tell her that Henry's father was a friend of Abe and the two had inherited the antique business together. The group raises a toast to family as Joe asks Abe for more stories about Henry. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to our channel.